Welcome to week 6 of How China Works.
Season 1 is flying by, although it doesn't always feel that way when we're researching shows, honestly, especially when there's as much to say as we want to say in this one.
Today's show is about one of the most researched, discussed, and sometimes misunderstood concepts in Chinese culture, Guanxi.
One way to define Guanxi is that it's the art of building and utilizing a network of relationships and then using them in mutually beneficial ways wherever possible.
That's not perfect, but a decent starting point.
Thanks. And yeah, there are almost as many perspectives on this topic as there are people giving them. Today we'll offer our thoughts on this too, or I should say, Yingying's thoughts and my reactions to them, mostly.
You have a thought to yourself, I think. That was one right there.
Yeah, but it may be my last good one.
Guess we'll find out.
All right, let's do this. So this is such a big topic, and we said that we can't be comprehensive, but we'll do our best to give you a starting point for your own deep dive.
As a point of reference, think of the way networking culture works in the West.
Most people have a sense of how Western business networks work. The biggest difference I'll throw out there right away is that there isn't the same sense of obligation to act on others' behalves as there is with Guanxi.
That's because Guanxi is pretty inseparable from other cultural aspects, like the emphasis on harmony, 和谐, and on building and protecting mians or face, which give it a much greater weight.
Right. No one has ever expected that just because, say, we're connected on LinkedIn, for example, and maybe we've liked or commented on each other's posts a few times, that I'm somehow obligated to hire them or help them find a job. But someone might expect such help as a result of Guanxi, depending on the relationship.
As we said, for you native English speakers, Western scholars have done tremendous work on this already, so we want to respect that. Google Scholar has many articles and references on Guanxi, so that's a good place to follow up from here if you want. But let's talk about why Guanxi is so different than similar ideas elsewhere.
It's because Confucius, right?
Right. There is a reciprocity and transferable quality to favors done in relationship networks here. That is a very Chinese cultural phenomenon.
Many foreign internet companies failed here because they failed to build good Guanxi, for example. Many international brands are not localized or localizable enough to work here. But Chinese companies understand this intrinsically, and they factor that in when designing their corporate operation models. For instance, Alibaba has a few great examples of this in action.
Yes, when designing Taobao, they realized that buyers and sellers needed to be able to connect to trust each other. Hence, they worked hard to build out the communication aspect of the platform and the app called Ali Wang Wang, I remembered. Plus, they tied it to their secure payment methods, Alipay. So people would buy not only easier, but with confidence in the delivery and return policies.
On the other hand, eBay didn't get this, and they didn't adapt properly to the Chinese market in general, so they failed here.
Of course, Guanxi isn't easily transferred across cultures. And you have a few thoughts about that, right?
I do. When doing some of my China Hollywood stuff with people on this side, it's often been frustrating to have to explain to them, repeatedly, that the standard way to, say, attach top-level talent to a project is not to find a person close to that talent and then leverage a personal relationship to talk to them directly.
That's because people coming from a Chinese mindset thinks that if you're in the equivalent of their Guanxi circle, then things will be easier. And that if you fail, it's just because you're not in the right group yet.
Yeah, and not because, say, the star or the representatives don't see the obvious wisdom of risking everything on someone who isn't established in their world already, who has actual credentials.
But you were telling me that there is a similarity, right?
This is true. Now, ironically, considering what I just said, personal relationships are everything within Hollywood, which has its own version of Guanxi in a way, but it's not that easily transferable to people from the outside with no track record in the system. So in my world, to keep that example going, people who want to work with top talent have to focus on getting the right pitch and then to follow protocols to get it seen, not on trying to butter up some middleman to get it right to the very top as their first move right out of the gate, which is pretty much the common play here. Now, as with all industries, there are vetting processes in place for a reason. In this particular case, they're there to verify that a project's right for the intended target of the pitch. And if the project isn't right for somebody, but you still magically maneuver to get it to them, they're still going to pass. But then if you were that access point who brought them something they think is dumb, then you risk losing your access yourself, and then you don't have a career. So that's not good.
It actually sounds more similar than I thought.
I guess it is in a lot of ways. Why don't we switch gears for now, though, and talk about some of the reasons why Chinese are so good at building Guanxi in the first place?
There are many, but one of the biggest is the influence of traditional culture. Because of our economic foundation, it's from being an agricultural economy, the integration of the family and the close friends with the country's needs is long-standing. The world and the country are regarded as one extended family. And it's good to talk about family relationships between family members. When family members expand to society, they talk about human relationships. People here are always paying attention to and discussing other people. So Guanxi is a very natural system for us in that context.
There are also several factors you were telling me that have to do with market factors related to scarcity. The example we talked about offline was medical treatment. So in some Western countries, right, there are better or worse hospitals and doctors, of course. And if you're willing and able to pay for it, you can go pretty much wherever you want to seek medical treatment. But if you can't afford to spend a lot of money, you have to go to the regular general hospital. And they can be good, but they're not always reliable. But it's not really the same system here.
In China, the pressure on the public healthcare system is intense. If you want to find and see a better doctor, the demand is very high, and supply is very limited. So you must find a relationship or acquaintance who has a connection who can get you an appointment.
Then there are the grayer areas of society where people want things outside of official channels or that aren't freely available in the market. This isn't always nefarious, but there are many things that can't be purchased or obtained on Taobao that people nonetheless want, like tiger bone baijiu from North Korea to supposedly aid their personal vitality, for instance, that people turn to Guanxi networks to obtain.
What both of these examples have in common is that the population is large and the resources are scarce. Everyone wants the same things, but amount is not enough to go around. And the reason Guanxi is so embedded in our culture here is that in this reality, it works. And if something works, the odds of it changing anytime soon are very low.
This is true. So moving on to some practical tips now, you had some examples of how the Chinese build Guanxi, and many of them are centered around food.
They are. Chinese will often want to take you out to dinner and drinking when trying to build relationships, because eating out together is one of the best ways to build Guanxi.
Hey, call back to week 1. Eating really is everything here, and Chinese people like doing things in groups.
Even the local way of greeting each other refers to eating. Some of the most common phrases you hear are 吃了吗?
Have you eaten?
Yes, we already mentioned this in our previous episodes, that here in China, 民以食为天, food as heaven here. It's very important to understand that this is one way Chinese care about the basic needs of others.
So it's different from just saying something like, hello, how are you, though the function is similar.
Yep, there's also 去哪儿, which literally means where are you going? In my hometown or community, whenever I came out, I could almost always be greeted by, 诶，去哪儿啊？上哪儿去? by my neighbors or friends whom I bump into in the street.
Was that actually Chinese?
Yeah, of course. That's dialect, okay? And interestingly, it might sound weird from Western ears or perspective. You might think, why Chinese want to know my privacy?
Indeed.
Actually, this 去哪儿 is just a way to say hi, like 吃了吗? It doesn't mean you really have to tell them that you're going to rob a bank. But a simple answer like, 哦，上街去, or 我出去一下, which actually means I'm just going out on the street, could be a perfectly fine greeting in return.
All right, I see that. Now, sometimes when I'm leaving my friend's place after visiting them here, when it's time to say goodbye, they say things like, manzo, which literally means, please walk slowly or carefully. That's a way to show concern for the guest's safety when they leave.
Yes, especially to a boss or other person of high respect. But there's always another way to show your cultural intelligence on Guanxi here. Something like 改天我请你吃饭呢 means I will invite you for dinner the other day. It's a very effective term to say goodbye in a warm way, especially among younger people.
So language does matter. What are some other ways to build Guanxi?
One of the other best ones is gift giving. The thought truly counts a lot here. Similar like in the West, well, you know, I had very memorable Christmas times in Brazil and the States for the last couple years.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and one thing impressed me most is that when you have holidays like Christmas, you have the tradition of exchanging gifts with family and friends. And it's both ceremonial and joyful, especially among the younger ones. It's also perfect timing for social bonding, a Western way of building Guanxi. And similarly in China, we send 红包. and mooncakes to each other when it's Spring Festival and Mid-Autumn Festival, which is equivalent of Christmas family reunion in the West. Besides, Chinese people also have the mindset and habit of bringing gifts when it comes to visiting family and friends. Most likely we buy some flowers, fruits, or even milk.
Milk is a gift? I don't understand Chinese people.
Well, in this case, Chinese people build Guanxi in a subtle way.
Apparently so. Is this more happening in non-first-tier cities in China, though? I think nowadays Beijing and Shanghai are much more Western influence. There seems to be less of an emphasis on the gift-giving, sadly.
It's a yin and yang thing again. In one way, it drives more efficiency in professional networking. In another, it loses its 人情味儿, which actually is the essence of caring in relationships and makes people more cold to each other.
Good way to put that. Now let's talk about some tips on how the international audience specifically can build Guanxi.
Sure, the keys here are empathy, likability, and language skills. They all matter a lot, especially if Westerners speak good Chinese. Chinese people are seriously impressed. Everyone here knows the dedication it takes to master the Chinese language. So when someone has done that, it greatly increases empathy and helps you gain their trust. You're clearly willing to work hard to meet people here where they are most comfortable and to master the nuances of Chinese culture. And that is much appreciated.
Yeah, language is really the top skill to develop. Imagine how effective I'd be here if I was fluent. It's almost scary.
Well, one way to practice is to spend more time on Chinese social media. You can see how people interact and learn from the types of things they share what is most important to them.
Speaking of that, this really sets up Tuesday's show on social media. Think of it as a way to build some electronic Guanxi. One last fun tidbit for today, though, is that during Yingying's research for this show, she discovered a Chinese TV drama that's called, roughly in English, Chinese-style relationship.
中国式关系. And especially in the first episode, I discovered that it's really vivid to present how to be 人情世故.
Which you told me is another way to say cultivating Guanxi.
Right. For those who have some level of understanding Chinese, this resource can serve as a great tool for both improving Chinese and understanding deeper Chinese Guanxi culture.
We've linked it on the resources page on our website, so if you can access the YouTubes, have a peek.
And if you have a resource of your own that you'd like to share, let us know via our feedback page, and we'll add that too.
We hope we clarified Guanxi a little bit if you were confused, or at least entertained you for a few minutes if you're sick of hearing about it.
Yeah, it may be an old subject, but it's an important one. And we couldn't call Season 1 complete without at least one show about it specifically.
Right. We'll no doubt have more to say about it downstream in other contexts too, but for now, that's it.
This week will be a fun one in general, with looks at making friends and tips on building your own Guanxi network via social media in real life, and how to care for and build your existing relationships.
Speaking of building relationships, we'd love to build one with you. So if you haven't already written us via the website to offer some feedback and let us know what you think and want to hear about in Season 2, please do that.
You can visit howchinaworkspodcast.com to learn more and find a contact form on the feedback page. Please do check it out. And don't forget to read, review, share, and subscribe to us wherever you get this podcast.
That's all for today. Thanks for listening. I'm Brendan Davis.
And I am Yingying Li. See you tomorrow on How China Works.